Hey there guys, I'm SonicGhost and welcome back to some more Let's Play Shadow the Hedgehog. Today we're going to be talking about a beta version of Shadow the Hedgehog on the original Xbox. This version of the game was recently discovered back in January of 2023 as part of the Sega Early Builds Discs Rescue Project. This version of the game was timestamped made on September 16th, 2005. This is a little over a month before the final Xbox build of the game was finalized. So this version of Shadow the Hedgehog is 1 month older compared to the final project. For the most part, this version of Shadow the Hedgehog is very much completable, as the entire game is in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog. All 23 of the main stages are here, along with every single boss fight and all of the cutscenes in the game. Although this beta version does have a lot of instabilities to it, there are a lot of crashes here, and in fact, the cutscenes specifically don't run correctly in this version. This is due to the disc being a bad burn via the said beta version here. When people were dumping the data from the beta content of Shadow the Hedgehog, a lot of files were mislocated and some flat out were just not dumped correctly. So cutscenes are the big factor in this beta version that do not work correctly. Modders were able to get this version of Shadow the Hedgehog working on the original Xbox by importing files from the retail release of the game. So this version is fully playable from start to finish. You can play the entirety of the game via this version if you want to, but there are certain things about this version that are very different compared to the final project, and that is what we are here today to discuss. First things first, once we get ourselves to the title screen, you can see it's essentially the same as the main version of Shadow the Hedgehog, the final build, except it has a B version logo on the top. So, really not that different so far, but let's just go ahead and jump into a story mode playthrough here of Shadow the Hedgehog. Jumping in, you'll notice right away the FMV cutscenes in this game are a little different, to say the least. For starters, the audio is extremely low in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog for all the FMV cutscenes. And because of this, it's next to impossible to hear anything that's happening unless you crank your volume up by a lot. Not to mention that these cutscenes here are slightly different compared to the final build, as the cutscenes in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog are rendered out in 720 by 480, meaning they have a little more width to them compared to the final version releasing in 640 by 480. So there is a little bit more of the scene you can see in these cutscenes. Other than that, they play out basically the same. There is also a lot of desyncing here with cutscenes in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog. I do believe a lot of this is due to the cutscene data just not working correctly in this build, and mixing in the final product's cutscene data into this beta version. There are definitely some instabilities to the cutscenes, but they at least work for the most part. Unfortunately, you can't skip cutscenes in Shadow the Hedgehog until you've seen them at least once, so you will have to sit through these cutscenes at least one time in every single playthrough, which is why it's not recommended to play through this game in the story mode version. You're better off playing stages in select mode, but we'll talk about more of that in the future. But for now, that's it for the first cutscene in Shadow the Hedgehog, so it's time for us to move on to our first stage here in this said campaign, Westopolis. So jumping into Westopolis here, we'll see things play out basically the exact same in this beta build as it does in the final product, minus the subtitles down below, as they are not centered to the screen in this version of the game. They're more left aligned, which definitely looks a little weird in this version of the game due to a lot of different HUD elements overlapping with your subtitles in this build. But I do want to mention that there are going to be some graphical errors in this run-through of the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. This has nothing to do with the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog itself. I am playing this version of Shadow the Hedgehog via an Xbox emulator on PC, specifically the Xbox emulator known as Zemu. So there are some graphical errors in this specific emulator, but for the most part, this plays basically one-to-one as how it would play on an original Xbox. You can dump the ISO image of this beta version onto an original Xbox and play this on original hardware if you so happen to have an original Xbox and can play ISO files directly onto the system via mods. So this version is console compatible, but I will recommend though, if you can, play the beta version of Shadow the Hedgehog via an emulator due to the constant crashing that this version suffers from. As playing on emulator, you can use save states to get back into the action a lot faster if your game does crash, because it will happen quite a lot in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. But there's one interesting note I want to mention with this specific version. You can use the Chaos Control glitch in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog, which you can't do this in the Xbox build of Shadow the Hedgehog. The Chaos Control glitch, where you use Chaos Control while in a menu at the same time, does not work in the Xbox build of this game. But the beta version still had this glitch intact, which is interesting to note because this version is very much on par now with the PlayStation 2 and GameCube version when it comes to some of its glitches. Also, you can build up other meters while using another version of Chaos Power. So in this case, we built up our Chaos Blast energy while using Chaos Control, something you can't do in the final build of Shadow the Hedgehog. But as you can see, you just play the same. The missions are the exact same here in this version, so if you're used to how the missions play out, you can still get the A ranks here in a very similar fashion. Everything plays out the same here in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final product. But one big thing to know about some of these cutscenes is that the in-game engine cutscenes, like the one you're seeing now, they run in 60 frames per second in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final build's 30 FPS, which, for the most part, these cutscenes function perfectly fine running in 60 FPS, although some cutscenes do have some issues running at a higher frame rate, which do cause some interesting effects, to say the least. One of these interesting side effects of cutscenes running differently in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final version is in Lost Impact. The intro cutscene leading into Lost Impact, where Shadow breaks open glass to grab a Chaos Emerald, the cutscene following that one specifically, there is a very likely chance where Shadow will die in the middle of the cutscene, in the middle of the fade transition, which results in a game over. Shadow constantly dies at a point where he loses all of his lives, and if you hit the retry button to continue where you're left off, Shadow will constantly die once again in a fade out cutscene. This just continuously happens on loop. The only way to get around this weird game over glitchy state is to quit the game, load back into your save file to go back into Lost Impact, and hope Shadow doesn't die in between cutscenes. This is a gamble that you just have to take if you want to play Lost Impact in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog. There's also other effects here that are interesting when it comes to the cutscenes in Shadow the Hedgehog. For example, Central City is missing its intro cutscene entirely. So when you go to play Central City in the story mode playthrough of Shadow the Hedgehog, you'll just get thrown straight into the stage with no cutscene leading into the events of what's happening in Central City. Another thing that's interesting is that Shadow's idle animations do play in cutscenes, along with the character models actually showing up in the cutscenes as well. So there are plenty of cutscenes in Shadow the Hedgehog, specifically in the boss fights, where you'll see two different shadows at the same time, which is very goofy looking. There's one specific cutscene I do have to talk about though when it comes to stability issues in this beta version of Shadow the Hedgehog. and that is the set of cutscenes in the last story. The in-game engine cutscenes play perfectly fine in the last story, but once you get to the FMV cutscenes, this is when the game just crashes. This is due to the issues I mentioned in the beginning of the video where the cutscene data wasn't completed in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. So because of this, there's a lot of corrupted files being played, and this leads to a crash. Any single time you try to watch the FMV cutscene leading in the last story, where the Black Comet gets teleported into the Earth's atmosphere, the game will consistently crash. Another thing that is different in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog are the ending songs for specific credit sequences. For starters, Broken, performed by Sins of a Divine Mother, is in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog. You will hear this song played during the semi-hero ending of Shadow the Hedgehog, meaning at this stage of the game, Sega was planning on using Broken in the Shadow the Hedgehog OST. But this was before Sega cut this song from the final version due to the communication issues they had at the time with the lead singer of Sins of the Divine Mother, Wiley Beechler. Another song that is different during a credit sequence in Shadow the Hedgehog is Waking Up, performed by Julian Kay. This version of Waking Up still plays during the neutral ending of Shadow the Hedgehog, but Waking Up in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog was an instrumental version of the song. There were no lyrics at this time for Waking Up. The final song that is different during the credit sequences of Shadow the Hedgehog is All Hail Shadow, performed by Magnify. This version plays in the pure hero endings of Shadow the Hedgehog, but the thing that's different specifically with this song is that at the time of this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, All Hail Shadow's lyrics are slightly different, meaning that this version of All Hail Shadow is essentially a beta version of this song, which went unused. I'll let you listen to the beta version of All Hail Shadow performed by Magnify in its entirety. That way you get a feel of how the ending credit sequences would play out here in the beta version of Shadow the Hedgehog. Outside of the 3 songs we just mentioned, All Hail Shadow, Broken, and Waking Up, every single other credit sequence in Shadow the Hedgehog plays the main theme of the game, I Am All of Me, performed by Crush 40. No other songs at this stage of development were added to the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, so at this time, there could have been some licensing issues that were still being cleared up, and because of this, we didn't have every single song that we know of in the game in the final build added to this version of Shadow the Hedgehog. So, interesting little side note about the music in this version. Things could have been entirely different for the credit sequences if a lot of the different licenses didn't go through at the time for Sega to use a lot of the other vocal themes that we have in the final version, as most of the credit sequences would have just been I Am All of Me, and that would have felt kind of empty, if you ask me. While we're on the subject of music in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, there are some other songs that are slightly different in this build of the game compared to the final release. One of those said songs is Glyphic Canyon. When you listen to the beta version of Glyphic Canyon compared to the final release's version of the same stage's song, you will hear that there is a drastic difference between how the song would have sounded in earlier builds of the game compared to the final release. Now, I can only play a small little clip of the beta Glyphic Canyon theme due to this song being a sample piece from a licensed soundtrack, but it's still worth playing a small little clip so you can hear how different this song would have sounded earlier on in development. Take a listen. Digital Circuit is another stage in Shadow the Hedgehog that would have had a different theme. Now, for the most part, the theme that they would have used originally for the stage sounds very similar to the final product, although some of its tempo definitely sounds a lot more energetic and rock-focused. Take a listen. Now, Digital Circuit seems that it could have had a remixed version of its said song in the soundtrack, as in the official Shadow the Hedgehog OST, you can find a remix version of Digital Circuit there. It is very much different compared to the final version song, along with the beta builds version of Digital Circuit as well. Take a listen. Circus Park would have also had a different theme earlier on in development in Shadow the Hedgehog. This version of the Circus Park theme sounds a lot more lighthearted, like you're actually in a circus, compared to the final product. Take a listen. One interesting thing to note about the beta version of the Circus Park theme is that you can actually hear remnants of this theme in the final product of Shadow the Hedgehog, along with this beta build of the game. You can hear the Circus Park's beta theme in the cutscene where Shadow enters Circus Park for the first time, talking about that damn 4th Chaos Emerald. Listen closely to the music playing in the background.
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald? Isn't that Tails?
Look at that! It's Eggman's theme park! He made it out of the rings he's taken from around the world. I've got to get those rings back.
A Chaos Emerald. This is just too easy. Guess it's my lucky day.
Another song that is different in the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final release is Gun Fortress. Now, the theme here for the most part sounds very similar to the final version's theme of the set stage, although when you listen to the two side by side, you will hear some instrumentation differences between the two different themes. There were two other songs that were different in the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, but that's not the case in this specific beta release, although they are worth mentioning nonetheless. For starters, the main menu theme at one point was going to be different compared to how it sounds in the final release. Take a listen. The final song that is different between releases of Shadow the Hedgehog is the system menu theme. Now, it does contain a lot of the same feel compared to the final releases version of this same song, although when you listen to it, you can tell the instrumentation is different. Just like with the beta version of the Glyphic Canyon theme, I can only play a small little clip of the song due to this beta system menu theme being a piece of sample music from a licensed soundtrack, but we'll just sample a piece of the beta system menu theme here. Take a listen. But that covers it for the music differences here in the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. So how do you say we move on to a different topic regarding this beta build? Let's talk about some of the gameplay differences in this version of the game. For starters, we already seen earlier that Shadow's animations are slightly different in this version. For example, during a mission complete screen, he would just walk on screen instead of coming out with a Chaos Emerald in his hands. In those specific levels you get a Chaos Emerald, Shadow just walk onto the screen and cross his arms. Minor difference, but it is something still to note. Another thing that's different in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog is that Shadow's throwing distance for picked up items, it's much greater in this version compared to the final build, meaning that items are just a little bit harder to grab when you throw an item away to grab a different weapon. Minor little inconvenience, but it is, once again, something different. One big difference, though, in terms of weapons in Shadow the Hedgehog are the vacuum-type weapons, as the vacuum-type weapons in the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog can suck up bigger enemies, for example, the gun robot mechs. Vacuum guns in the final version of Shadow the Hedgehog can only suck up smaller creatures and boxes around you. They cannot suck up giant mechs. They're just too big for the vacuum gun, meaning that those weapons simply do not work on those kind of enemies. But in this beta build, the vacuum weapons can suck up gun mechs, making it a more versatile weapon to use, and even better for the Billy Hatcher egg vacuum gun, give you more live opportunities in the process. But outside of the vacuum guns, all the other weapons in Shadow the Hedgehog function the same in this beta build as they do in the final product. So now it's time to talk about the gameplay differences and level differences in this version. For starters, I want to mention simply the reset functionality in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. It functions the same as it does in the final version, where if you pause the game and scroll down the reset, you will start from the very beginning of the level. But in this beta build, the reset function doesn't reset your timer compared to the final retail build of Shadow the Hedgehog, which makes getting A ranks in neutral missions much harder due to neutral missions specifically revolving around how fast you can beat a stage to get an A rank. If you want to reset your timer in Shadow the Hedgehog, you have to quit out of the stage and load back into it to reset the timer in this version, which is a lot more inconvenient for ranks. Another gameplay difference to mention is the vehicles in this game. They move much faster in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final build, meaning that those specific vehicle-based missions in Lethal Highway, Iron Jungle, and Air Fleet, where you need to destroy a specific vehicle to complete the mission, become much harder, as these vehicle objectives constantly outrun Shadow. So these missions, they more rely on the super heavy-duty weapons that you can get, along with a lot of infinite ammo from your Chaos Mirrors being filled. These missions are way harder here in the beta version of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final product. Speaking of vehicles, the vehicles that Shadow can control here in Shadow the Hedgehog also control slightly different in this version. For starters, the convertible car here in Lethal Highway is white. It's not yellow. Slight little difference here graphically, but in all honesty, the actual difference in vehicle control in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog is that these vehicles have a lot more heft to them, so they're much harder to control in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final product. Vehicles were already hard to control in Shadow the Hedgehog as they were, but at this stage of development, vehicles went from 0 to 100 at any moment's notice, while also feeling like they were either a solid brick that wouldn't move, or a slippery bar of soap. So vehicles in this version of the game are not recommended to use in any fashion. Another gameplay difference I want to mention is the Chaos Control glitch that we saw earlier back in Westopolis. Chaos Control glitch is a glitch that does not work in the Xbox version of Shadow the Hedgehog, but it does in this beta build. And this is because this version of the game predates the GameCube and the PlayStation 2 versions of Shadow the Hedgehog. And you can clearly see that in a lot of senses because if you use the chaos control glitch in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog, there is a nasty side effect where you will keep the checkpoint menu open during the results screen when you finish a stage. If you select the checkpoint during the results section of Shadow the Hedgehog, the game will crash upon you selecting a checkpoint in the results screen. The game crashing upon selecting a checkpoint isn't the only way I found a game-breaking bug using the Chaos Control glitch in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. I also noticed that in the Doom, going through warp points using the Chaos Control glitch will cause the game to not understand what is happening with Shadow's positioning. So upon going through a loading zone, you'll just be met with a black screen. And the only way to fix this is to quit the stage and start over from the very beginning. So if you're using the Chaos Control glitch in the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, make sure you cancel it out before you end the stage or hit any kind of warp zone. Well, that's all the gameplay differences that are worth talking about when it comes to this beta version of Shadow the Hedgehog. So now, let's talk about what's different in the various stages here in this beta build of the game. So, for the most part, stages are very similar to their retail counterparts, but a lot of stages do have some variations made to them in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog. A big example you can see with some of the variation of level layouts in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog is in Circus Park, one of the sections where you would go backwards on the stage to collect one of the 5 secret keys. The platforms don't exist in this beta version of Shadow the Hedgehog, leading to one of the secret key locations compared to the final build, meaning that it is impossible in some stages to collect all the secret keys, whether it be due to some of the layouts in the stages being different compared to the final version, meaning that some of the keys just don't exist yet in this state of development, or some of the stability issues as mentioned previously in this specific beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog leads to you going down certain sections and levels only for you to be met with a crash instead of actual progression. I wouldn't recommend going for any of the secret keys in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. It's not worth it. Another thing that can be different in some stages are alliance systems when it comes to summoning enemies. For example, in Sky Troops, Eggman's robots, they count towards your hero points and not your dark points, which is not the case compared to the final build. So, in Sky Troops, there's no way to build up your dark score in any fashion from enemies. You have to rely on either the heal cannon to convert enemy score into dark points, or break objects to get dark score, meaning it's impossible in this stage, along with other stages in Shadow the Hedgehog, to get the A rank for certain missions due to the point distribution. Another stage where this issue occurs is in Lost Impact. The artificial chaos in this stage, they do not have an alliance system tied to these said enemies whatsoever, meaning that the artificial chaos will not count towards your hero score. In fact, they will count towards 0 points as a whole, meaning that there are no enemies in the stage at all to contribute to hero points, making the hero mission impossible for you to A rank. You can get around some of these problems with the heal cannon, but just like with Sky Troops, you're not going to be able to get the best rank for the hero mission just because of the enemy distribution system. Also, fun fact about Lost Impact is that Maria's face textures failed to load in the results screen for me. So that's a nightmare I'm never going to live past. Also, the cutscene leading out of Lost Impact, sometimes having some very nasty side effects like the cutscene leading into the stage. Oh, here we go again with Shadow wanting to die all the time. Come on. Let's try again. Really? How does Shadow keep on dying in a cutscene? This is just impressively annoying. Now I'm gonna hit no on continue and see what happens.
This can't be. Die here.
Okay? What is happening here?
Please, Shadow.
Double the shadow.
Help.
Double the
Everyone's fate
release to Earth system? What is this? Maria, you forgot me! Oh no! Sonic, you have no idea what I just witnessed. In fact, where are we? What are we doing in space? We're looking at nothing. That's the void. Are we under the space colony Ark's main deck room? What is going on? Man, the cutscenes in this beta version are hanging on with string and hope. I'm honestly surprised that this is still functioning.
They're up there. That's where the answers are. I've got to get to that comet.
While we're still up here in space, I want to talk about Space Gadget next. As in the final build of Shadow the Hedgehog, the hero mission has you racing against Sonic, getting to the goal as fast as possible. But during the hero mission, Sonic does not show up in the mission at all. In the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, on the other hand, Sonic is a partner character that you can meet up with in Space Gadget. Which is weird when you're racing against Sonic, only to see him run alongside of Shadow, taking his sweet time. You can see why in the final project, Sonic isn't there on the stage in any fashion. But this could be a good opportunity for player 2 to control Sonic. Except that that little co-op system doesn't exist in the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. You can't plug in a second controller and control any of the hero characters in this version of the game like you can in the final build of Shadow the Hedgehog. At this stage of development, it just seems like they didn't program this feature in just yet. While we're on the subject of two-player functionality in Shadow the Hedgehog, a two-player multiplayer mode in this game still works the same as it does compared to the final product, except that the intros leading into any of the two-player matches have no audio cues play at all. And that just makes this mode very hollow and empty. No music plays, just only some faint sound effects from your characters moving around and firing their weapons. Other than that though, the multiplayer in this beta build functions the same as it does in the final product. All 6 variations of the different shadows to play as, along with all 3 of the multiplayer stages, are featured here in this beta version, as they are in the final build of Shadow the Hedgehog. One oddity to note though about the multiplayer in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog is that the shadow boxes are present in all of the multiplayer stages here in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog's multiplayer. There's a shadow box in this? What the hell? Oh my god. I gotta hit you with the shadow rifle. Wait, how would it work with the heal cannon? Oh my god. I wanna know that too. I'm like, do I hit you with one thing or the other thing? They're both great examples. You're not supposed to have the shadow rifle or any of the shadow box stuff in here, so this is kind of weird. Like, shadow rifle just do normal damage to you. This should heal you, except it won't. Yeah, it literally doesn't work. Rub yourself against this box here, and I'm gonna try to hit you with the box. Wow, really? I shoot through the box. It's not supposed to work like that either. I get on the wall then, I guess. That's a solid object. Yeah, you're not gaining any rings. So this is not doing anything. Which I figured. It's like you're not supposed to use this kind of weapon in multiplayer or something. So we already know that doesn't work.
Damn it.
Does the blade not hit you? I think it did. Yeah, no, the sword beam does hit you. That still worked. Wait, did that not? Oh my god, that is the most pathetic blast. Satellite cannon, more like dud cannon.
Damn it.
Alright, this works like the vacuum gun from before. I do damage, but only if you hit the tip.
This can't be.
In the final product, shadow boxes are not found in any of the multiplayer stages, meaning that you cannot use the unlockable weapons from the main single-player campaign in the multiplayer mode. But here, in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, you can use all of the unlockable weapons that you can find in any of the shadow boxes throughout your entire adventure here in Shadow the Hedgehog. Some weapons don't work as they are intended in the multiplayer mode and just flat out have no purpose in this mode of the game. Still a fun little fact though to see these special weapons in the multiplayer mode in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. The last section of Shadow the Hedgehog I want to talk about in this beta build of the game is the last way. But as I mentioned earlier, you can't access the last way in this beta of Shadow the Hedgehog, because the FFE cutscene that leads into the said last story section crashes the game consistently. But there are other ways to get into the last story, as this version of Shadow the Hedgehog features an in-game cheat system. So, to simplify all these different cheats, I'm just going to list on screen now all the different functions that you can utilize via the cheat system here in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. You can use the cheat menu here to wipe all your progress, and if you do so, you will hear a ring loss noise. When you hear this noise play, that means all your progress has been reset. There is also a cheat where you can unlock every single stage and have them all A-ranked. And if you use this cheat, you'll hear a different sound effect play. The only thing that doesn't unlock using this specific cheat code are the keys in stages. But other than that, this one specific cheat code will just 100% complete the game for you. There are other codes you can use while in game as well. Things like you complete a level with a specific mission type, toggle invincibility, infinite ammo, get your different chaos meters filled up, enable a debug menu specifically for player positions, but I haven't gotten the in-game cheats to work correctly. I've seen people demonstrate these said cheats, but in my experience, these cheats haven't worked for me in the beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, so your mileage may vary on what cheats work and what cheats do not. The most interesting set of cheats, though, that you can use in Shadow the Hedgehog, in my opinion, are the select mode cheats, where pressing in certain button combinations where it will clear all your level progression in that said stage, meaning that if there's a specific mission you wanted the A rank and you just didn't want to have it from, say, your full 100% completion cheat code, you can wipe all your level progression with a simple code and start from scratch. There's also another cheat where pressing in certain button combinations will set your story progression to whatever stage you have selected in the select mode and allows you to continue your story mode playthrough from that stage, letting you skip ahead to different paths in your playthrough of Shadow the Hedgehog. Using this story progression select mode cheat, you can skip to any stage that you would like to complete in Shadow the Hedgehog story mode, skipping any single one of the pathways and go wherever you want in terms of level progression here in the main game. Although, if you do skip ahead to any of the different stages via the select mode for your story progression, things do play out for the most part the same as they would when you're playing through a standard story run, where you will get the cutscenes entering into the said stage and the cutscenes proceeding afterwards. But if you do finish one of those specific pathways using this select mode cheat for your story progression, the credit sequence will just end up playing I Am All of Me instead of whatever song you're supposed to hear at the end of any given path for your said credit sequence in Shadow the Hedgehog. For example, completing the Pure Hero pathway using the select mode story progression cheat does not play All Hail Shadow at the end of that said campaign. Instead, in the credit sequence, we hear I Am All of Me. So this is one caveat to note if you're using the select mode cheat. How you end your story progression, it's not gonna count in the same way as it would if you just finish a standard story run through from start to finish. Your save system also doesn't work correctly if you use the set select mode cheat, so do keep this in mind. But thanks to the cheat codes, we can unlock every single stage to play in Shadow the Hedgehog, and this will also allow us to skip the cutscenes as well, meaning now we have access to the last way. Inside the last way, you will notice one big thing immediately when you pause the game. Black Doom has a selectable mission on the pause menu, meaning at an earlier stage of development, the last way was supposed to have at least a dark mission of some kind for you to complete. There may or may not have been a hero mission here, but we at least know because of this Black Doom icon being selectable on the pause screen, there was at least going to be one final dark mission for Shadow to complete in the final storyline of Shadow the Hedgehog. But this is not present in the final version, of Shadow the Hedgehog, meaning that this concept was scrapped. Another big difference in the last way, along with the final boss fight here in Shadow the Hedgehog, is that both of these sections in the retail build of Shadow the Hedgehog do not have ranking screens of any kind. When you complete both the last way and the final boss of Shadow the Hedgehog, Shadow will just appear in front of you and pose. That is it. No results, no ranking, nothing like that. But in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, there is a ranking system for both the last way and Devil Doom. So both of these stages do have an A rank requirement of some kind, which is not present in the final build of Shadow the Hedgehog. And specifically, the final boss ranking is really difficult to get in this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog because the ranking timer continues in the results screen once you beat Devil Doom. So probably not worth going out of your way to try to get an A rank on the final boss in Shadow the Hedgehog due to the ranking timer continuing in the results screen. Nasty little glitch at this time of the development, but in the final build, this kind of glitch doesn't exist simply because a ranking system was not put in place for the final boss fight in the retail game.
Yeah, he did it!
Is everyone alright down there in the city?
I hope he's okay.
Looks like half of you are on fire, and the other half buried in concrete. Eggman seems to be the only character that doesn't seem to be suffering in any fashion. So that's what the flames of disaster looks like inside of Knuckles.
Damn. Not here.
Can't even end our adventure without Shadow falling down some undisclosed void.
Damn. Not here.
It's the final cutscene. Even the final cutscene has a death loop bug. Oh, how am I not surprised? But that is all of the differences that I think are worth noting with this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog. There are other slight differences too, like for example the Xbox dashboard icon being different for this version of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final product, along with some of the text being different compared to the final build and this beta version of the game, with some unused objects also being in the game code. But other than these specific minor little differences, most of your differences in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog I feel come due to very specific level design being changed from the beta to the final build, along with some of the leftover pieces of content that are in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog. If you want to learn more about this beta build of Shadow the Hedgehog, I recommend taking a look at the Shadow the Hedgehog Beta 4 page over on the cutting room floor, as this website details a lot of the differences in this version of Shadow the Hedgehog compared to the final product. I will leave a link to this said website down in the description below if you want to learn more about this build of Shadow the Hedgehog. But with that said, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.